So, calling all devs. Last question, sharing missions. Sharing missions with other players. And they kind of, they went through kind of what their vision is. It was really cool. They had different ideas as to how they wanted to go about it, who the mission owner would be. Only the mission owner, the person who accepted that mission, would be able to complete certain objectives. That's the idea, the way that they're going. And it was all fantastic. It was all great to hear. There's a lot of good ideas in how they're approaching it and, things that are going to be iterated on over time. However, the most important part of that is when, because the appropriate answer to that question is now. In the massively multiplayer online gaming universe, encouraging players to play together, giving them reasons to play together, giving them the tools to play together is one of the most critical things. It's the very foundation of your game. You're selling multi-crew ships. You're creating missions with the idea that they are going to, scale up and they're going to allow for more players or different types of ships. Oh, they brought a hammerhead. Well, let's make it a little bit more difficult. Oh, they only brought an arrow. Well, let's maybe dial that down a little bit. The reward system, all that. But the most important part is you need to set them down that path. You need to kind of get them used to the idea of working together to achieve those goals. If you do anything to, kind of undercut those goals, if you do anything where you're like, oh, well, this is a system that we'd like to visit it, but we've got this other idea that we kind of want to get in first. The automatic answer to that is always no. Multiplayer first. Always. You want to get people used to it. You want to encourage it. You want to facilitate players getting together with each other and playing together. Sure, it's important to have things that you can go off and do on your own. I mean, you might be someone like me. All of a sudden you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't get back to sleep. What are you going to do? Might as well game. It'd be kind of shitty if you couldn't go out and do anything by yourself. Absolutely 100% agree with that. But at the same time, there should be certain incentive and encouragement for players to kind of go out and play with each other. And I think that this is kind of a feature where it's kind of like, oh yeah, we'll get that in. But to me, having grown up in the massively multiplayer universe, I know that you have to set that hook early. You have to get that in the game early. You have to get people used to playing together. You have to get people going, you know what, I could go do this thing on my own, but first, let me check and see if there's any groups going on out there that I can get in with, because that would be more lucrative to me. That would be more fun for me. You don't want to get players too used to playing solo, and the truth is, a lot of what we do in Star Citizen these days is pretty damn solo oriented. And you kind of want to push people away from that. You want to push them into the idea of playing with friends, of playing with a group. And so not having this system in place, I think, was kind of a bad move. And the fact that it's still something that's, pay attention to the roadmap, it should appear. I think that of all the mission improvements, that we've seen, the only one that I care about is multiplayer. Now, maybe I'm wrong. This is my opinion. This is my point of view. But I think that this is absolutely critical to the game. And if anything, this should be at the front of the line. That the party system, the mission objective reward sharing system, all this should be absolutely top priority. 100%. Now, one other thing that they talked about was the idea that the mission rewards should be divvied up equally amongst all participants. As a baseline system, just getting it in place, fine. But down the road, I would actually argue the opposite. I would argue that each one should get that reward. Let's say, we know that mission rewards, for instance, are going up in value. CIG has kind of looked at the price of ships and looked at the ability for players, just average players, to make money. The guy out there in the Aurora, the guy out there in the Avenger, and they're adjusting accordingly. I would argue the opposite. I would rather have a mission sharing, an objective sharing, a reward sharing system that magnified the rewards based on how many people you could get together to do things. I think that it should naturally encourage you to say, oh shit, is anybody on? Not. Damn. Well, I guess I'll go do these solo missions. And then as soon as somebody else logs on, it's like, hey man, do you want to come do missions with me? Yeah, I do want to do missions with you, because there's that added bonus. I think that it should actually skew towards rewarding people more for playing in a group, or encouraging people who might be, kind of solo players to say, hey, you know what? I could just stay on my Avenger and do my own missions and do my own thing. But if I group up with this other person who's in a Cutlass, who's off doing, security missions or pirate missions or whatever, I can actually kind of ramp up my rewards. And the better we play together, the faster we're going to get them done, the more rewards we're going to get. It kind of drives me towards completing those mission objectives in a very efficient manner. A system that kind of encourages that type of play, I think, is kind of where you want to head. Or perhaps if that's not, the way you want to go, maybe creating a gated difficulty, like a player selected difficulty that gates those rewards. So let's say you got two players and they get together on a Cutlass. You know what? Let's say there's, a 5, a 1 out of 5 difficulty grade on missions. 1 skull is, 2 skulls is pretty dangerous, 3, 4, 5, and it just scales upwards. And you get a couple of players together in a Cutlass or whatever, and they say, let's dial the difficulty up and let's dial up the rewards. Now that we got a group together, let's do that. And maybe, that accelerates reputation gains as well. A system like that. I think that so often multiplayer systems are something that are just kind of put in place and then just kind of neglected by a lot of games. And I think that encouraging, player grouping and encouraging, difficulty level, maybe even gating difficulty levels behind that group aspect. I think that is something that should be encouraged and something that should definitely be prioritized. When I was watching that whole episode, I was like, yeah, you know what? There's a lot of good things that you're talking about. Maybe a few points that we can, argue back and forth. But absolutely, priority number 1 should be getting mission sharing into the game. That should be number 1 priority 2019. Get mission sharing into the game. However you do it, just get it in there first and foremost, because there is nothing worse than having a mission saying, hey man, well, why don't we do missions together? It's like, yeah, but I'm not going to get any rewards. Well, I can maybe create a beacon for you or something like that. Bullshit. Get mission sharing into numero uno. Get it into the game. Anyways, that's my thoughts on the subject. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.